So, welcome back to another Half and Half Scar football podcast with me, Nick, and my mate Dom. We've got a lot to talk about on this episode, and this episode is recorded beforehand but going out in the international break, which means for those who are regular viewers or listeners to the podcast, we're going to share more observations on the season so far, because that's what we do between breaks. We record things that we think, we make notes on things that we see, and we share those observations with the podcast listeners and viewers. So, without further ado, we have a list to get through. It's sort of some order, probably not in a lot of cases. Little things, big things, subjects that are hopefully interesting, things that you're talking about in the pub, in the concourse. So without further ado, Dom, welcome back, mate, co-host. I'll do my shirt first because normally we do yours. And because it's the international break, I thought I'd wear an international shirt. What I mean by that is a shirt that's not from Middlesbrough, and it's my last season's BVB Borussia Dortmund home shirt. I know you don't like the big one-on-one
Yeah.
logo on it. This year's is really classy. It's just got a straightforward Vodafone built into it. I quite like the shirt. I'm not a big fan of yellow, funny enough, even though I'm a massive sort of Borussia Dortmund follower. But I quite like this, and I'm wearing it because the international break, I wear an international shirt, and that's all we'll say for our YouTube followers. You've got a very plain, classic Everton polo shirt. What's the score with that, mate?
This one is celebrating 125 years of Goodison Park, released in 2016, 17. It's just a kind of an Umbro shirt, and it's a remake of a very early, late 1800s, early 20th century Everton kit with the old badge. Very simple. I like it. Worn it to a lot of matches. Yeah, I'm fond of this one.
Is it a match shirt or is it a polo shirt?
No, it was a match shirt. It was a match shirt for a friendly before the season started.
Right.
So it is kind of a polo shirt, but it's actually also a match shirt. It's recreated on an old match shirt. So
Okay.
yeah, it's nice. I like it. It's simple, no sponsors, no noise, just a badge. I like it a lot.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's move on to our content. Let's move on to our list of things that we've observed or seen or want to talk about. The first three are clustered together, and the third one of these we've got a debate about. But let's talk about the first one. It's been announced that the Premier League are only going to allocate one Premier League fixture on Boxing Day. Now, we don't like to swear on this podcast particularly, but that is an effing disgrace. Like, it is absolutely the antithesis of what football's about. Football is about the fans. Football is about history. Football is about tradition. Football's about kind of community. And Boxing Day, for me, should be non-negotiable. You should have a full fixture list on Boxing Day like we always have, because every stadium that has a Boxing Day fixture is usually full, and they're playing one Premier League fixture on Boxing Day and they don't give a shit about the fans. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm really surprised at that. I've noticed that myself recently, because we haven't got a Boxing Day fixture. Talk Everton wise. I'm talking. Our last fixtures on the Saturday before the 21st against Arsenal at home. It seems to be something that's fading away in the Premier League, and they, instead of having a traditional Boxing Day game, they then instead move it into a kind of Christmas weekend of fixtures, all for television schedule. I'm with you. I like a Boxing Day game. I don't like it every single year because I'd have to go every single year. I do love going, but I quite like it in alternate years because it depends what I've got on family wise and commitment wise, coming up to the northeast, etc., living in the northwest. So it's not always doable for me. But in terms of what you were saying, Nick, yeah, I agree. It is a tradition in the English game. I know a lot of leagues now shut down for Christmas. That seems to be a trend. The Germans shut down, etc. But not in, and I know a lot of the managers and the teams don't like it because notoriously in our leagues, there's a heavy Christmas schedule, a lot of fixtures. I know a lot of the teams aren't big fans of it, with them having to, roll into the third round of the FA Cup, etc. But to be honest, it is what it is. It's what it's always been. And if you don't have the fixtures then, you've got to cram them in somewhere else. So, yeah, and I think it's one of those times where fans do get together. Fans come home from wherever they are in around the country or around the world. You often get a sellout on Christmas Boxing Day games. I know Borough's really good at getting a sellout, and it gives much needed revenue. So in it's Premier League fans are the same. Why should they be denied a Boxing Day game when they maybe get together with all their family? I agree with you.
Okay. On that subject, I'm going to finish with it. It's wrong. Move on. Premier League, you're absolutely disgraceful. Your fans deserve better. Speaking of fans deserving better, and I'm not knocking Coventry City as a club, they're having a fantastic time, scoring goals for fun, top of the league, great goal difference, playing really well, but there's a bit of backlash about the fact that they're charging 40 quid a ticket for their Boxing Day home game. 40 quid a ticket for a championship game because they can. And there's a talk about boycotting that. Now, people won't boycott a Boxing Day fixture and Coventry are top of the league, so that's unlikely. But that's just taking the mickey, isn't it? 40 quid. They're just taking advantage of the fact that they can. And it's, as always, one of the things that we're always about is it's a backlash for the fans, isn't it? Why should you pay 40 quid a ticket for a Boxing Day game? It's not 40 quid a ticket for a normal Saturday game or a Tuesday night game. Just taking the piss, really, aren't they?
Completely. Yeah, I'm me and tickets. I'm always raging about it. Yeah, it's just blatantly taking advantage. I'm interested. I'm interested in this. If Coventry weren't where they were and flying, would they be charging £40 for a Boxing Day game? No. So they're literally doing it because they are where they are. Well, not being funny, Coventry. The chances are you probably will be where you are at the end of the season because you are flying and doing really, really well. But be careful what you wish for. It's still a couple of months away. You might be in a different position by then. I don't think you will be, but it feels a little bit like let's take advantage of where we are and the fact that Borough fans are brilliant away from home and they'll pay it.
Yeah.
That is definitely part of the thinking because they know Borough are brilliant with their away support and travelling numbers at Christmas. And it's just charging them because they know they can make an extra bit of money.
No, no,
It's
no.
completely wrong.
This isn't. They're not playing Borough on Boxing Day. This is just them charging for
Oh
their
right,
home.
okay. So
This is this is
yeah. I haven't
no.
looked at the fixture because I was going to say I know we're playing them at home in November, but I know sometimes the reverse fixtures can happen really, really quickly. So I just assumed it was Borough. I hadn't looked at who the fixture was. So it's just in
This
general about who they're
this
playing.
is this is for home fans, mate. This is charging home fans 40 quid.
No, I thought
Yeah.
that was for the away ticket.
No, home fans 40
Oh
quid.
God, that's awful. That's even charging your own fans.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse, mate. No, I'm not. I'm not an advocate of that. I'm always a big believer in a fair ticket price across the board. Don't get me started on tickets. We'll be here all week, mate.
Okay, move on.
Yeah,
Move on. What I'd say to you, going back to the Borough thing, any club who takes a big allocation usually gets penalised by the fact that they get higher prices because they know
yeah,
they're going to fill them. It's not just Borough, it's Sheffield Wednesday when
yeah,
they're not obviously boycotting. It's other clubs, Coventry travelling big numbers. We pay more for our away tickets because they know we're going to sell them.
exactly.
But
That's the
40
point I was
quid.
trying to make. I think yeah. Anyway, yeah, we both
Um,
agree on that one, mate.
Well, I've got something we might not agree on, which is the next one. And there was a Manchester City backlash from fans. Manchester City released this statement. Season ticket holders are being told if the club don't attend the game last weekend, and that was we record this, they'll lose their season ticket for next season. Man City season ticket holders have to personally attend 10 of the games, and the ticket has to be used 16 times. Fans are being told by the club that if they haven't attended enough games, despite this, they will lose their season ticket for next season. Now, there's a backlash against that. We have very different views on that. My view is if you got a season ticket, you're entitled to do what you want with it. Your argument is if you got a waiting list, I guess, it's unfair for someone just to block that seat. I think it's for to be dictated to by the club that you've paid your money to, and I'm assuming significant money in the terms of a Premier League club like Man City. I think they just don't give a shit about fans. Seriously, what's your view on that? Because I know we have a disagreement on this, really, don't we?
Well, I actually think the opposite. I think that is potentially the club giving a shit about fans because they actually, recognise perhaps that ticket could go to a fan who's going to be there every match. Never heard that statement be released by any other club, and that really smacks to me of that fans aren't using the tickets. That indicates to me that they're not being used at all. So it's like, well, you need to attend at least, you need to have used it 10 times and attend at least 16 games. Bloody
Yeah,
hell. Well, you've got 19 home games a season.
yeah,
And if you've got a Man City season ticket and you're not physically using it, so maybe they haven't explained the broader terms of this. I don't know. Are these fans selling their ticket back to the club so someone else is using it so that they physically know that that fan isn't using it? But you could then argue the ticket is being used, or these fans that are buying the tickets and then actually just not turning up at all,
Mm.
so that they're just not being used. And I assume they will know that because of blipping in the ground, because most places now it's
Yeah.
all recorded electronically. I do have a bit of an issue with it, I have to say. I mean, it's funny because where we were sat at Goodison for the last however long, I'd say for the last 8 years, the people on our right, it was someone different every single match. So either those two seats were owned by someone who never ever turned up and just sold them back to the club every week, in which case, why have you got a season ticket?
Yeah.
Because the thing with what I like at Everton is you can't sell the tickets via resale sites, so they don't, exploit fans. They
Yeah.
have to go back to the club. You'll get reimbursed the match ticket price of whatever it costs, linked to your season ticket price, and it'll get sold to someone else. But I do have a bit, and funny enough, where we are at the new ground, there's been someone different next to us every single match, and it's like, well, what's going on there? That
Mm.
that must be sold to us as a season ticket, because if it's, I'd be shocked if it wasn't. So if it is, it means that someone's bought it and is not using it, and they're obviously selling it back to the club, and then other fans are coming in. But I do have a bit of an issue with that. It's like, why have a season ticket if you're never going to use it? And I know it's like, well, if I don't have a season ticket, I won't be. It won't be there for future reference if I need it. I get that I do get that to a point,
Mm.
and maybe that's okay, because you could argue, well, maybe circumstances have changed. They live abroad or whatever. They still want to hold their ticket, because if they don't, they won't have one for the future. And I probably get that more, at least if they're selling it back to the club every game and the club
Mm.
are then using it and selling it to an ordinary fan. I get that bit. What I don't get is, if you've got a ticket and you're not physically using it, you are depriving someone else of having a ticket and going to those games. So maybe that is a wake up call to fans to use the tickets.
If you've got a waiting list, which is fine, but if they just send, if Man City want to take the tickets off them to sell to tourists, then that's the bit that gets me all wrong, because that's not right at all.
No,
If they sell it to a waiting list fan
yeah,
for a season ticket for them to go to every game,
yeah,
then I can almost get on board. It depends on the circumstance and the reasons why someone not using the ticket, I guess, in the first instance. But, to be dictated to by your club, the club that you support and love, although you're not supporting them if you're not there, I guess, but you still follow them and you still love them, to be
yeah.
told that you can't have your ticket anymore because you're not meeting some moratorium on rules. I just think, again, just taking, the fan relationship, and just sort of peeing all over it, really. But let's move on from that. Another thing on my list, which is two things connected. Scottish football's getting interesting, mate. Scottish football is getting interesting. Go Hearts is what I'll say.
Yeah.
As we speak, Hearts are 8 points clear of Celtic, having just beaten Celtic quite comfortably at the weekend, and more importantly, Brendan Rodgers' character assassination by Dermot Desmond, and Martin O'Neill coming out of some kind of broom cupboard after 20 years to be appointed Celtic manager. I actually am quite interested in what's happening north of the border for once, because it's not just Celtic, trouncing the way at the title or whatever. It's quite a fascinating sort of start to the season up north of the border, isn't it?
I completely agree, and long may it continue. And I'm sure Scottish fans, especially Hearts fans and neutrals of other clubs, are loving it, because this is what Scottish football needs. I remember Alex Ferguson saying a few years ago, you'll never get it again where someone else will do what Aberdeen did all those years ago under him. He said it's just impossible now because Celtic and Rangers have made it impossible. But it
Yeah.
just goes to show you that nothing is impossible. It just is very fleeting if it happens, and
Mm.
that's because you've got a complete meltdown at Rangers because whatever's going on, yeah, they decided to just, rip up the rule book, employ Russell Martin, and start again. Celtic, well, yeah, that's a separate subject. I'm a big fan of Martin O'Neill. Always rated him as a manager.
I did.
I still think he's got the credentials to do it now. I think he's a really great bloke, and I think he'll be nothing but good for Celtic. Which is, it's they won in the week, didn't they? Was it 4-0 or 4-1 against Falkirk in the week?
Mm.
Business as usual. They'll suddenly recover very quickly. I've never been a fan of Brendan Rodgers. I mean, I think he's so far up his own arse. It's unbelievable. I mean, he really, really does fancy himself. He's got a
Yeah.
massive ego, really, really high opinion of himself. And it's funny that the things he said, I really liked how eloquently the owners of Celtic really pulled him up for it. And they're not. I don't think. I don't really think that the way he articulated that, you could tell that wasn't a lie. He wasn't making that up. He's got no reason to lie. He's just basically correcting someone and saying, actually, these are the facts.
Yeah.
So, Brendan Rodgers is all about himself. He always has been. He always tries to protect himself and look how amazing I am. I'm not
Yeah.
saying he's not a good manager. I think he proved that when he came back down to Leicester and did some great things at Leicester. But I don't know if you remember this, mate. When he took over at Liverpool, they did a documentary on him, and one of the things he did one of these things where he had all the players in a room, and he did this thing with the envelope where he said, "Oh, I've got two names in this envelope, and these are the two players that I think will let the club down this season." And I was just like, "Oh, fuck off! Seriously,
Really?
straight away, fuck off!" It was just a really terrible, marketing gimmick,
Oh,
just something for the TV, and it's like, how pathetic is that? So, in other words, you're going to put all your squad on pins and get them worrying that two of the players in this envelope are going to let the club down. What a load of bollocks.
that's
And that, for
worse.
me, summed up Brendan Rodgers right then. He had an ego at Swansea. He's had an ego ever since. He'll probably get another job in the Premier League or somewhere else at some point. I actually hope he doesn't, because he just bores me, to be honest. And he is very much about himself, and I just don't like him.
Well, I
Pure and
think
simple.
I think his character's been called into question severely by Dermot Desmond, and I think other chairmen might look at that and think, is this guy to be trusted? Because Dermot Desmond's literally, like you say, the wording was brilliant, but he's literally called him out for being a liar and just, unstable and all that kind of thing. Really, really assassinated his character. The other thing I'd say about Brendan Rodgers is, a lot of people have got small man syndrome. He's got tiny man syndrome. Have you seen him? He's about 4'6", isn't he? He's a proper little angry
Oh,
little, yeah,
yeah,
angry little thing, isn't he? Really, to
yeah,
be fair.
and all these comments he comes. I mean, let's face it. When the wheels started coming off at Leicester, he didn't have an answer, and you're at Celtic, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
So you're literally making excuses when you're at Celtic Football Club. You're a manager. You're supposed to be able to get the best out of the players. You can't tell me that all this Honda Civic nonsense. I've been given the keys to a Honda Civic. You can't make them play like a Ferrari. You're a manager,
Oh,
Brendan. You're
yeah.
supposed to be a top class manager. You've still got players that are probably vastly superior to most of the teams in that league. So here's an idea: be a manager, make
Yeah.
it work.
Excellent. It's made
So
Scottish
yeah,
football interesting, though, for the first time in a long time.
it
And
has, and Hearts are a fantastic club,
mm,
and I really, really hope they maintain this, mate.
I know.
The thing is, in the Scottish League, 8 points isn't a lot, is it?
Nah.
That can be decimated very quickly if Celtic and Rangers suddenly get on it again and they have a wobble. So, we're all keeping our fingers crossed, because it's a bit like the German league. You want other teams to compete and win now and again. It's fantastic.
Just moving on, Rangers are not getting there anywhere anytime soon, mate. It's just Celtic
No,
or Hearts, isn't it? I would imagine. Now,
yeah,
because we're recording this in the international break, I'm just going to go back and reflect on the last international break. And it was a really weird scenario that England were playing at Wembley, and Thomas Tuchel, when we played Wales, Thomas Tuchel criticised the England fans about the lack of atmosphere. And what I loved was when we played Latvia out in Latvia a few days later in a qualifier rather than a friendly. The fans were brilliant, weren't they? The England fans were sort of singing songs about Tuchel and, is this Wembley in disguise, all that kind of thing. And I absolutely loved it. I like Tuchel's English sense of humourness, really. I think he gets it. I think a lot of people say, well, it's his second language, English, so, he maybe been misquoted. He hasn't. He's a bright guy. He speaks English really well. He understands the nuances. And he was criticising the England fans just for being quiet. Now, my viewpoint with Tuchel is this. A lot of fans don't want him, and I'll explain why in a second, because he's German and he's got one job: to win the World Cup or not. If he didn't win the World Cup, he's a failure. Simple as. It's a World Cup win or not at all with Tuchel. That was his remit. My only question for Tuchel would be, why on earth would you alienate the fans even further by having a dig at them? And I'll tell you one thing that I heard. after this. I mean, one TalkSport phone-in listener, you know what TalkSport phone-in listeners like. Most of them have got, head up their arse or whatever. He said, if England win the World Cup under Thomas Tuchel, I won't support. I won't celebrate because he's not English. I mean, I'm talking about being an absolute moron, right? But Tuchel, don't alienate your fans, is what I'd say, because you've only got one thing to do: win the World Cup or not. You need the fans on your side. I don't know what your view is on that, really.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's always a bit of a poison chalice when managers come out and criticise fans or want more noise, etc. It depends how you take it. I think you'll have a group of fans who applaud him for saying it because they might think the same thing. I've been through periods watching my teams where you just want more engagement from the fans and more support, less vitriol and more noise and actual support. Who might go, well said, if that might galvanise them to actually get behind and think twice and be less critical. But equally, you get the fans on the bandwagon saying, "No, we pay our money. This is what we think and what we see. We're entitled to our opinion, so don't get involved." I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And maybe it's the best thing to do on that one is maybe perhaps just hold your counsel a bit. Maybe say if you actually really get to a point where there's something alarmingly wrong in terms of the fan support, being a bit quiet on an ad hoc match. I mean, let's face it. I think the match in question was a bit of a dull one, if our memory serves me correctly. I might be wrong on that, but I think it was a fairly tame and boring match.
No, I think England were 3-0 up after no time, weren't they? And it was one of them, it's a friendly, there's nothing going to happen now, is there? So I think they all went to sleep after 3-0 and, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's only Wales. They're
That's
not
what I
going to
mean,
come
though.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just ticking the boxes and just
Yeah,
endless passing and going along for like
yeah.
however long in the match. But yeah, the fan who says I'm not going to support England if we win because Tuchel's German, well, doesn't surprise me that TalkSport got him on really like beggars, but you don't give people like that airtime. You just don't. I mean, how pathetic is that? It's your country, and he's a talented manager. He's a divisive figure. Not everyone likes him. I think he'd probably himself admit that he doesn't stay long in jobs because he is divisive. He's very
Yeah.
demanding.
Mm.
But let's face it, he's got all the credentials to win the World Cup for England. When he gets it right and when you see England click and get it right, the goals they've scored have been fantastic. He
Yeah.
has got a difficult decision every time in terms of how does he fit all the amazing players we have at his disposal into that team.
Hang on, we're going to do a
We're
podcast
going
on
to do
that
a pod on
separately
that,
at
so that I was going to say
at some point.
that's a
Yeah.
separate pod. It's a difficult one for him. But and I think he would openly admit that that's his remit, and I think he'll happily walk away if he doesn't do it because he'll just move on to the next thing.
Mm.
That's his style, and I think that's the general consensus. And I actually think England, the people who've employed him, accept that as well. So I think it's all in or bust for him. Basically, I don't really think if it doesn't work. I think the only time I see him staying on for the Euros is if we have an exceptional World Cup and maybe we get to the final and we're pipped to it in an exceptional game. But even then, he might walk away. So,
Yeah.
fans, I'd just say get behind it and enjoy it. If it ends up we having a fantastic tournament, playing great football, where does it matter where he's from? He's a talented manager. It doesn't matter what his nationality is. It really doesn't matter.
Totally agree. I'm going to get on to some game observations, and then I want to get on to a couple about the laws, really. Okay, so I'm going to come to a proposal that Wenger's put together for a new offside law. I'll come to that in a second, but a couple of observations. First of all, long throws are back. In all levels. I mean, don't get me wrong. They probably didn't go away at some level of football, but long throws are back, and everyone in the Premier League's losing their shit about long throws and whether we should get Tony Pulis to come back and manage a team and whatever. But they're pretty bloody effective in the first quarter of the season, aren't they? Defending against them. I also think when you look at it, I think keepers are not getting as much protection as they used to, which is good because they've been an overprotected species for a while. And I know you had a goal recently at Everton, one at one end and wasn't given and one that was given against you. So you probably got a thought process on that. But long throws are back. Corners, if you can take a long throw, brilliant. But how many people can't take corners this year? I've seen loads of corners, can't beat the first man. I'm thinking to myself, for Christ's sake, a professional footballer. And even though they put the ball on the slight outside of that semicircle, which pisses me off immensely, by the way, that they're trying to find a quarter of a millimetre outside that semicircle. They put it there. They still can't beat the first man. So first man corners are rubbish. Long throws are back. Football's great. Now, I will say to you a couple of things on observations is Anthony Taylor is the worst referee in the Premier League. His performance in the Man United and Brighton game recently was appalling, and it was appalling for both sides. I've got no skin in that game for either side. I watched that as a neutral, and he was absolutely abysmal. He never gets his on-field decisions overturned or even asked to look at it again by VAR because he's Anthony Taylor. Anthony Taylor makes a mistake on the field. Nobody says, you might want to have a look at that, Anthony. I don't know whether he's got, something over his fellow colleagues in the VAR booth or whatever it might be. He had a shocker. And then talking about VAR, Jared Gillett stuck to his original final decision in a game where Sinesi got a yellow for a foul on side in the Palace versus Bournemouth game. And because Borough had played on the Friday night against Ipswich, I was watching Soccer Saturday, which I rarely get to watch Soccer Saturday. And when he went to the monitor, they were all saying, oh, well, he's going to overturn it, he's going to overturn it. Jared Gillett stuck with his on-field decision. And the Soccer Saturday studio erupted in joy and glee. It is that rare that a bloody referee will hold his own counsel and say, no, I was right. So there was a yellow card that Sinestri got, and he said, I'm sticking with my original decision because VAR suggested it should be a red. And he went, no, I'm sticking with it. And everybody erupted and celebrated. That's once in however many games we've had in the Premier League so far this season. So I want referees to be A, better than Anthony Taylor, and B, I want them to be more Jared Gillett when it comes to having the balls to do it. But long throws and corners, the whole thing, it's all about the game, mate. What do you think?
I don't mind it. It's mixing it up. Seen loads of long throws now, haven't we? I mean, Everton are doing it as well. Jake O'Brien's taking them, and it's a big thing of the game now. As is, from kickoffs, hoofing it out almost like a rugby kick into, to get it into opposition half territory and then take a long throw. Yeah, corners always bug me if you can't beat the first man. A team that can take a really good corner it's like gold. I mean, Tottenham did it against us at Everton on Sunday. In fairness, two really great corners, really good in swingers. I mean, the second one, if it had been left alone, it probably would have gone in itself. It was that good. Our defending was woeful. Van der Ven got both goals. You very rarely going to come back from 2-0, game over because of two set pieces that we couldn't defend. But the corners were really well taken, really close.
It's a big unit, Van der Ven, as well, isn't he? To come marching in on it. And at the same weekend, Marcus Tavernier got a goal direct from a corner for Bournemouth. Now, as I'm saying, when you see him taken really well, but just keep watching. If you're listening to this or watching this, you keep watching how many players take corners and can't beat the first man. And I don't know if it's me just looking for it more or whether it's just a trend, but it seems to be more and more of that. So, I just think, you see players on a Sunday morning full of beer, full of curry, they've just got change in the car and they can smack a corner in, really well. Why can't a professional footballer beat the first man on a corner is what I'd say. I want to move on to celebration. Sorry, mate, go on, yeah.
I was just going to say about the VAR thing you were talking about, VAR. I think what made my blood boil at the weekend, and I posted it in our LinkedIn group, and you know me, I'm a really calm fan. I don't bounce around and scream and shout. I'm hating the inconsistency of decisioning. So we were 1-0 down at Everton. Tottenham won. Everton 0, Tottenham 1. We got an equaliser from a corner. Now, from a corner, you can't be offside because the ball's already on the goal line. So corner comes in. Jake O'Brien scores a goal. So it's straight from the corner onto Jake O'Brien's head and it's into the goal. So it hasn't bypassed anyone else. It hasn't been passed to anyone who's offside, or it hasn't been brought into play from the corner. If it's come directly from the corner, Jake O'Brien's scored the goal. But it's given offside against Ndiaye and Grealish for being in offside positions because they're the last two men before the goalkeeper. But you can't be offside from a corner. So I'm really mystified. How is that offside when you can't be offside? That is the rule as well. But they gave it for offside, not not for infringe. Because they then said, "Oh, Njai infringed Tottenham's goalkeeper."
He
He
didn't.
didn't infringe the goalkeeper. There was no way he was getting to that ball anyway. He was badly placed. It was a superb corner, and it was a great goal. But they gave it because Njai was offside, and Moyes agreed with it. He said, "Oh, I've got no problem with that." Well, I have a problem with it because you can't be offside from a corner,
Yeah,
and you, the goalie's the last man. You're now saying that you're offside if there's not another Tottenham player with the goalkeeper. Well, that's not the case because the ball's being kicked in from the goal line,
yeah,
so you're not ahead of the ball, and it didn't. It they didn't. They're not impacting the play. So how can you be offside? I've never seen that rule applied, and yet bizarrely, if you look at Van de Ven's first for Tottenham, before before the corner comes in, he grabs Pickford and pulls him round the middle.
mm,
Nothing huge about it, but it's the same kind of it's the same infringement that was put on the Tottenham keeper from Njay, and then he
yeah.
scores the goal. So where's the difference?
It's the inconsistency, isn't it?
I get pissed off at the just the consistency. Just be
Yeah,
consistent because they'll try and say why they made a decision, but I don't understand where that comes from. I've never seen you being offside in an offside position from a corner when you've got
no.
nothing to do with the play.
Let's talk about other things you've not seen before. I'm going to get into some celebrations in a minute, but something else I haven't seen. When Borough played Ipswich on the Friday night a few weeks ago, Borough's keeper, Saul Bryn, got pulled up on the 11-second rule. I think it's 11 seconds, where you can't, as a keeper, hold the ball for more than 11 seconds without distributing it, either putting it down and, kicking it, or just putting it down and putting it into play, as it were. And he gave Ipswich a corner for that, which is fine. I think I've seen it once more in the entire, all the games I've watched. I've watched a lot of games this season. And it was like, wow, okay. So if you're giving that for 11 seconds for Saul Bryn, why isn't that given in every game for more than 11 seconds with almost every keeper? Because at least once a game, every keeper for every team, home or away, holds that ball for more than 11 seconds. But we gave Ipswich a corner at a crucial time in the game, thinking to myself, bloody hell, if they score from this, I'll be
Yeah,
mightily pissed off. Yeah, that's the rules. That's fine. Just
absolutely.
apply the rules all the time. So I think if you're a fan of another club and your keeper's being penalised on the 11-second rule and the corner's being given against you, put it in the notes for us. I'd be intrigued. I've been to a lot of live games. I've watched a lot of other games as well. And Saul Bryn was the first, and so far I think one of only two maybe I've seen where that penalised kind of thing comes in. It's the inconsistency of it, isn't it?
Oh, completely. And yeah, I'm linked to that. I'm not. I think goalkeepers now, and when they get the ball, there's so much time wasting. I mean, Spurs were time wasting appallingly on Sunday. It was just an awful watch. They were awful, by the way. I mean, they'll probably be better when Solanke comes back and other players come back, but they were terrible. I mean, they scored their goals, fantastic, deserved to win. We didn't really. We played better than them, but created very little. And the one thing bits we did create we should have done better with, but we haven't got a really good striker. That's another story. But typically on the goalkeepers, they do this thing now where they get it and then they put it on the floor. Then sometimes they go and pick it off the floor and move it somewhere else to take the kick. Then it gets past the defender. Then the defender wastes a bit of time. And then they knock it up pitch. And Spurs were doing this and really abusing it time after time after time on Sunday, and the keeper didn't penalise them once. It was just you could tell they were really on the cusp of it, really wasting time. Every throw in, dawdle over, every corner, dawdle over, every free kick. They'd get like a spreadsheet out and everything else and start working it all out.
Yeah.
It was just time. I mean, these are Premier League clubs, and the time wasting is appalling. I just think from goal kicks they need to be a damn sight more efficient. You've got the ball, put it down, get it back in play. End of.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do some celebrations, okay? I'm going to go through 5 or 6 of them, then we can comment on them as a collective, okay? Jean-Philippe Mateta has had a 18 months, 2 years for the ages, right? He's playing brilliantly for Palace. He's scoring goals for fun. And after many, many attempts, I suspect, he's been recognised by his country. He played for France on his debut and he scored on his debut. And as a neutral fan, I found that wonderful to behold. A guy who would probably be seen as a journeyman footballer who has suddenly found and it's not a short, temporary, rich vein of form. It's a long-standing vein of form, recognised by his country and scores on his debut. There's the first celebration. Second celebration, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Malaby or Majalby, the champions of Sweden by an absolute country mile. For those who don't know about Majalby or Malaby or how you pronounce it, it's literally a village of about 150 people in the middle of nowhere, and they've suddenly won the top division in Sweden by a country mile. And I love the fact that it gives everyone hope. I mean, Leicester were obviously an established club and an established sort of town and city, if it's a city. Majalaby literally is like a village in the middle of nowhere, and they've won the Swedish top division. Great celebration. On the subject of great celebrations, I'd like to take my hats off to Gateshead FC, because Truro Town recently did a 920-mile round trip to play Gateshead FC in Gateshead. And Gateshead FC put £920 behind the bar for the Truro fans as a thank you for their return journey and for making that trip up to the northeast. The longest match in football history in the top tiers of the 5-6 divisions that they sort of measure this by. Truro to Gateshead, 920 quid, 920 miles round trip, rewarded by 920 quid behind the bar. Well done, Gateshead FC. Happy days. So Malaby, Majalaby, Truro, and Jean-Philippe Mateta. What's your thoughts on that?
Completely agree on all three fronts. Gateshead, that's a really class act.
It
That's
is.
that's football community at its finest. You know, recognizing the commitment of the away fans. What a really nice touch that is. I mean, I don't know how many Truro fans came up, but that's still a couple of pints behind the bar. You know, that's a really, really nice touch, that from Gateshead.
I loved that
That,
when I
that's
loved
just
that when I saw that.
classy, absolutely classy. Mateta, yeah, how brilliant is that? Gets to play for his country and celebrating the way he does. Fantastic. And like you said, it's not a coincidence. This is a player at the top of his game playing really good football in a team that are flying and that we have a lot of time for on this pod because we're big Palace fans. We love what they're doing. And the Swedish team, wow. Yeah, I mean, you know, to put it into context, you know, I know a lot about the Swedish league. Obviously, I'm wife's Swedish connections, etc. And she's a Malmo fan. And Malmo are probably the biggest team in Sweden, as Gothenburg, probably IAK, you know, as well. The comparison is like looking at them compared to then, you know, a team in the Northern Premier Division. That's the gulf in resource, money, everything. This is a small fishing village where about 300 people live. The pitch isn't even straight. It's ridiculous, and I can't even put into context what a feat this is that they've managed to do it and steamroller the league. I mean, they've just done everything better, you know, in terms of training, resource, using their budget really well, galvanizing the fans, galvanizing the team spirit. They've got a really, really lean squad as well. They've played fabulous football. And you know what? You know, it might continue. They might, but I just, no one saw it coming. And whether it'll happen again, I don't know. I mean, I know people raved about Graham Potter with his Östersunds side when they got into the Alvascan from lower down the division. But this is something else because they've not only got into the league, they've bulldozed it.
I think they won. I think they won it. I think they won it by 13 points, didn't they? Something like that, like ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Hang on, Graham Potter. I've got two things I want to think and challenge. Graham Potter has been appointed Sweden manager. I just put what the fuck, and then Ruben Selles was back in work 21 days after being sacked, quite correctly, by the way, by Sheffield United. He's now Real Zaragoza manager in the second tier of Spanish football, 21 days after being sacked for being useless at Sheffield United. That and Graham Potter. Tell me now, what's happening with football? How do these people get a job when they're so crap?
Yeah, do you know what? The Salah situation. We've talked about this. I just don't rate the guy. I just don't. How he's managing to bag jobs as a manager, I don't know. He might be good behind the scenes as a coach. If you look at his CV of where he's come from, what he's done, he might have built up quite a lot of experience in football, but he's not a football manager. I mean, he might go to Zaragoza and do amazing things. I doubt it. I mean, what are they seeing that other people aren't? It's as clear as day, but it's a different league, different style of play, different pressures or lack of. So he might fly there. But Graham Potter, I mean, wow. I mean, I had a bit of respect for Graham Potter when he first came into the league from what he'd done at Ulstersons in Sweden and how he went about it at Swansea, and then he was snapped up after a season at Brighton. But it's an interesting thing this as well, that I've read quite a few articles on this about when you're sacked as a manager and you're repeatedly sacked, the impact that has on you as a coach and your capabilities of bouncing back and being successful again, and how you often find that when it happens, it very rarely happens that managers come back and are very successful again. And
Why
I
would there
don't
be?
see, I just don't see where I'm not sure where Graham Potter goes. I think he's done this because he's got big connections in Sweden. He was there 10 years, still got a house there, loves the country. I'm not quite sure if he speaks the language. He'll see that as a dream job, less pressure than managing the Premier League. But I feel with Graham Potter a little bit now that it's almost become a bit like, I don't know, like I don't see where he's got the passion anymore.
Hang on. Graham Potter, right? He's a Sweden manager. They're going through the qualifying process through the knockout phases to get to the World Cup. They're unlikely to get there, but he's probably got 2 or 3 games unless he does get them there. But my question would be, when he leaves Sweden as an international manager, which he will, where does he go next? Because he's nowhere near anyone's top of anyone's list, even in the championship. If you're a championship manager club now and you decide to sack your manager in the summer or next October, you telling me Graham Potter would be anywhere near your top 3 candidates?
Yeah.
He probably would be some dickhead bloody chairman who just sees, oh, Graham Potter, yeah, great, we'll have Graham Potter because he was really good once at Brighton. I could be really good at Brighton under Tony Bloom. Tony Bloom, the same guy who's making Hearts, brilliant, by the way. We should have mentioned that earlier at the top of the pod. So Graham Potter, absolute joke. Ruben Sellers, not sure at all. We don't get him at all. I missed 2 celebrations, by the way, I want to talk about. One is Tom Lockyer made his debut back for Bristol Rovers last weekend as we record this. Great to see. He's had some
Yeah.
hellish tough times. It's great to see the guy back on a football pitch, and we wish him luck. We wish him long, happy health. Tom Lockyer, welcome back to professional football at Bristol Rovers. And
Yeah.
and
Totally agree.
and Jamie Curitan,
Oh, this is brilliant. Yes.
the first player in history to score in all 10 top divisions of the English pyramid, and he's still playing at age 50. Jamie Curitan, I'm taking, if I had a hat, I'd
I'd
take my
take
hat
it
off
off
to
to
you,
you.
Jamie
Yeah.
Curitan.
Yeah.
10 divisions, every division of the football pyramid, and you're still playing at 50. Jamie Curitan, you've made me
Hats off to you.
smile. You've
Yeah,
made
what
me
a player.
smile.
He's playing for the love of the game, mate. That's a proper pro right there for you.
Yeah,
He can still play, so he is playing, and he doesn't mind where he's playing as long as he's playing because he loves the game. Fabulous. That's what football's about for me, and it's stories like that that should be celebrated, and people should pick up on it more. And I love that. So yeah, I'm wholeheartedly agree. And yeah, Tom Lockyer, long may it continue, Tom. We wish you well, sir, and hope everything goes out and you can still keep playing because we don't want your career to be cut short by your condition. So I hope
excellent.
everything goes well. We've got everything crossed for you, mate.
I,
Absolutely.
I just observed something, Dom. You've got the look of Tom Lockyer about you, or Tom Lockyer's got the look of you
Well,
about
I think
you.
he's got the look. He's got the look of me, mate. I think we'll go for yeah. We'll
Has it
go with
been
that.
said before?
No, no, but actually, do you know what? And I think about we do look very similar, don't we? Yeah,
Yeah, there
yeah.
you
He's a
go.
very good-looking man.
Okay, because it's international break and because we're coming to the end of our list, we want to do some honourable mentions. But like everything, we don't honourable mention big clubs because we don't care. So I'm going to honourably mention clubs in each of the 4 divisions. Okay, I'm going to start. We'll do each division and see what you think.
Yeah,
honourable mentions, more than honourable mentions, at this stage of the season, when we record it, and it might have changed by the time this goes out in a couple of weeks' time, honourable mentions to Bournemouth, Sunderland, Palace, and with a big apology to Keith Andrews, Brentford in the Premier League. I'm loving what you're doing. Even Sunderland giving us hope as a potentially promoted club that it can work for us. But Bournemouth, fantastic football. You know, if you listen regularly, we're big fans of what Palace are doing and achieving. And apologies to Keith Andrews because we said at the start of the season he'd been dealt a duff hand. He's definitely going to get sacked quite early. And you know what? He's playing with a smile on his face. And you know when they win, he bloody loves it, doesn't he? He loves. I love watching Keith Andrews when they win. He's just genuinely honest. So there's my honourable mentions in the Premier League. Anyone to think about add to that or what?
Well, what I would say, mate, I don't actually. I remember us discussing Keith Andrews and what a tough hand he'd been dealt. I don't. In fairness to us, mate, I don't think we said he was going to get sacked quickly. I think we said that the jury was out because he's not managed before, so we didn't know. We didn't know anything about him.
Yeah,
I don't think I said I think he's going to get sacked quickly.
I might. I might have done.
I just remember saying that it felt like he had one hand tied behind his back. It's interesting because I was commenting on a few threads online on this. Someone referencing the week about how good clubs like Brighton and Brentford are run and how meticulous they are in their planning. And someone put on a post saying that they're a Brentford fan and it wasn't a shock to them how good Keith Andrews would do because
I saw that
they firmly believe that how he's been integral in what's gone on in the club beforehand, that they knew that he'd be good. Now, I don't fully buy that.
No.
I think that's a very easy thing to say in hindsight because I just don't see how you can quantify that when someone's never been a manager before, ever. And I remember when we commented on it, I think it was at the start of the season that it hadn't even kicked off yet.
Yeah.
But what I admire is he's a very likable guy, comes across really well media wise. He clearly knows what he's doing, and Brentford being Brentford, I think he's got the comfort of working for a club that are really, really well run. I mean, once again, they've lost two key players, and they're playing beautiful football. They've got a striker that, again, no one's heard of before. Their recruitment's superb. The way they go about things, Brighton and Bournemouth included. So, yeah, he's been a really pleasant surprise package and a long way to continue because it's a breath of fresh air for the Premier League. Yeah.
And Regis Debris, Sunderland doing a great job.
Oh, absolutely. What fabulous! I mean, we said on the pod, didn't we? When they won the playoff, I think everyone out there would have said the same thing in terms of sorry, my dog's just going crazy in the background. We said the same thing in terms of I think everyone out there said that their squad wouldn't do well in the Premier League, and even a lot of their fans I've spoken to were of the same opinion. Not only have they managed to recruit 15 players, but managed to get the perfect blend of those 15. I mean, it's hard enough to integrate and get 15 players playing the way you want.
Yeah.
But in every facet of their team, in every position, they've recruited superbly. They've gelled really well. They're just doing a fantastic job, and it's not a fluke. I don't think it's a fluke. I think they're going to stick around.
Yeah. Conscious of time, I'm going to just read out some names. Championship, I'm just going to read out the top, I think there's 7 or 8. Coventry, Borough, Millwall, Bristol City, Stoke, Charlton, Preston and Hull. Not one parachute team amongst them. Long may that continue. That's a great top 8, and it's really refreshing to see as it stands at the time we record this. We're fully aware that the likes of Leicester and Ipswich and possibly not Southampton because they are shit. Leicester and Ipswich might come through at some point, but the moment as it stands at recording, I'm loving that. League One, Stockport, Bradford City and Stevenage, we've mentioned before, Stevenage as a journey for them. And in League Two, Swindon. I love Ian Holloway. You've got to love Ian Holloway as a character. So Swindon are doing great stuff. Notts County, good to see a club of that scale and size doing well. I mentioned Chesterfield. I know they're many people's favourites for promotion, but my mate Phil Marsden, he'll appreciate the mention for Chesterfield on here. What I'm trying to say is it's great to see a variety of clubs that we're not used to seeing again, as it was at the second international break, sticking around. At the second
Yeah,
international break, it felt like by the time we record the third one, maybe it's going to be the same old names. But so far, I'm excited by it. Long may it continue. It might stay. They might stay around a bit longer. What do you reckon?
I agree. I'm a bit like I actually heard Paul Merson reference it the same, and I was remember chatting to uh, your son Rob about it when we were at the match last Saturday, Borough match. I always measure seasons, particularly in the Championship and below, because it's such a hard slog and so many games. I measure it in 10 game tranches.
Yeah,
And I remember I looked at some Merson reference the same. He said in the Championship, you just kind of take it 10, 11 games at a time, and it's a really good measure of where you're at.
yeah,
And if these teams are still doing it after the second tranche of 10 games, you're nearly halfway through the season, it's not a fluke. You're doing something right.
yeah,
So I agree with you. All these teams are still there after 10, 11, 12 games. That means that they're in it for the long game. I mean, I know there's always a case of teams can literally drop like a stone. We've all seen it. I remember Middlesbrough being top of the league at the end of 2012, and come the end of the season in 2013, if we'd had 2 or 3 more games left of that season, we'd have been relegated because we were abysmal. So it can
yeah.
happen, but yeah, I totally agree. I'm loving it. I've got a lot of time for Stockport. I used to go and watch them when I lived near there. Bradford again, fantastic club, doing really well. We're both loving the Stevenage
Yeah.
roller coaster. Championship, I said at the start of the season, and I'm going to maintain this, that I didn't think any of the clubs that came down would do well and would struggle. Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. I said none of those will go back up, and I'm going to stick by that. And
Yeah.
I think it's great to see how, like you said, the clubs that are there at the moment, and I think they're going to be in it. I think they're going to stick around, mate. I do.
Let me give you a stat on Southampton. Since the playoff final, when they beat Leeds United 1-0 in 2024, in May 2024, so a season and a quarter so far, they've secured 24 league points in a season and a quarter since they won the playoff final. I'll just leave that stat hanging. You don't need to comment on that, right? I want to finish with a couple of funny observations. One is, are we taking bets any time on Darren Ferguson going back to Peterborough for the fifth time? When will that happen? What are the odds on that happening at some point in the future? That's a ridiculous state of things. Leave it alone, Darren. They've sacked you for the fourth time. Off you go. Don't come back. Don't look back in anger, as they say. But my funniest ones to observe are, I love Brazilian players with single names, right? So I was watching the game the other day. I never gave it a second thought. There was a game on telly, sort of background game. Fulham were playing, and I said, "Oh, and the substitute for Fulham is Kevin." Now I'm not being funny. If you're a Brazilian guy and you want to choose, I'm expecting next week someone's going to sign for someone called Derek. But Kevin came on for Fulham, made me laugh. But the one that gets me the most is the guy who plays for Sunderland, and he's called Reynildo. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you, mate.
Yeah.
I want to finish on that as a funny note, really. Reynildo. I don't know who he thinks he's trying to be. It's suspiciously like a common name that we've heard before twice at global football level. Reinildo. Reynildo. Reynildo and Kevin. Long may you thrive in the Premier League, because you're making me smile every time I hear your names. Brazilian footballers think differently. It's so funny that. What do you reckon those two names, mate?
I would say don't think differently because it brings us so much joy. Those two names are brilliant. So long may it continue. I want to see more of that. Yeah, don't think properly, guys. Just keep throwing them out there because Reynildo is inspired. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I want to see Trevor and Derek anytime soon.
Yeah.
We've had Fred, haven't we, before? So that was fine. That worked. Yeah, yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah.
On that point, conscious of time, I'm going to finish the podcast, Dom. We can talk about observations on football forever, and we often do, don't we? Especially at match days. But another international break is upon us and finished, hopefully, by the time we record, you see this. So what I want to do now is talk to you about what we're going to do on the next podcast. I've done that again. There's something wrong with my sharing screen device, but hey, you know what? It's just probably user error on my part because I'm old and cumbersome. Bear with me. Slideshow from there. So that was episode 21. Episode 22 is going to be something really different. We had a guest on episode 18 who was Yusuf, who's a Middlesbrough fan who travels from London with no connection to Middlesbrough and has become a bit of a cult hero and a super fan at Middlesbrough over the time. But we're going to talk about a guy and talk with a guy who is based in Thailand as a Borough fan, and he's rallying people across Southeast Asia and the wider Asia community to support football. He's a Borough fan. We're not going to be just talking about Borough. He's a very special guest. He's a broadcaster. He's going to be fantastic. A guy called Tommy Walker. That's on episode 22, but that's been episode 21, our observations so far on the season in between the international breaks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share on all your favourite platforms and YouTube and LinkedIn groups, etc. And we'll see you very soon. Dom, pleasure as ever. Catch up with you at a game very soon, and take care, my friend.
And you, mate, yeah, it's been brilliant. Loving every second of it, and I'll look forward to the next one. See you soon,
Cheers.
mate.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.